Well, it happened. I got hit with a customs duty invoice on my most recent handbag purchase from Japan. If you'd like to learn more about how this may impact your future international purchases, please stay tuned. For those of you who are familiar with my channel, you know that I love handbags, especially my Louis Vuitton handbags. All of my Louis Vuitton bags are purchased secondhand, and very often I buy them off of eBay from Japanese sellers. Japan has an abundance of secondhand luxury bags, and very often they sell them at a much more reasonable price. I have never had to pay duties or tariffs on my handbag purchases that were under $800. For those of you who are not familiar with the de minimis exemption, it enables you to import goods into the United States, which is where I am, and if it's under $800, you do not have to pay duties. Be aware, the de minimis exemption is expiring on August 29th. So that means as of August 29th, 2025, it is not going to matter whether or not the goods you import are under $800. You will be responsible for paying the standard duty as well as reciprocal tariffs. So I recently purchased two handbags. One is with me here. This is a Louis Vuitton Neverfull in the PM size and the damier Aben. And then I also purchased the same handbag but in the monogram print. Both bags are made in France, which will be an important point as we will discuss later in the video. But I purchased these bags from two separate sellers and on two separate days, and each bag was valued at under $800. So why is it this time I had to pay duties and reciprocal tariffs? Well, this required a phone call to DHL. If you ever have to call DHL, make sure you have a lot of time and a lot of patience. I kid you not, the phone rang for a full 30 minutes, but someone finally answered the phone and was able to answer my questions. So my first question for the rep at DHL was, why was I charged duties and these other fees when the bag was under $800? So this is what happened. I had purchased these bags two separate dates, but they arrived in the United States on the same day. And this violated a rule which only allows you to import one international item per day. So the penalty is they added up the value of both bags. It ended up adding up to over $800. So they applied the standard duty plus a reciprocal tariff. For those of you who have never received one of these customs duty invoice, this is what it looks like. I got a text saying that I owed a balance. Clicked on it, they make it very easy for you to pay, but they do provide this document, so I downloaded it and I printed it so I could take a closer look. In terms of how to figure out what applies, now this video is not a comprehensive video about tariffs generally. I can only speak about my specific situation, which is buying a Louis Vuitton handbag from Japan. But according to this, for a handbag, they apply a duty rate of 9%. The item value here was $629, so that is what I paid for the bag. When you multiply 0.09 by the item value, the amount is $56.61, which is not terrible. The problem is that the total was $169.27. So my second question was, how do we get from a 9% duty with the amount being $56.61 to then $169.27? And this is when she reminded me about the new reciprocal tariffs. What she told me is that in addition to 9%, they added an additional 15% of the reciprocal tariff with France. And I said, well, it came from Japan, not France. Why the reciprocal tariff with France? And that is because both bags were made in France. So another important point to keep in mind, it's not only where the item is coming from. You also have to keep in mind where the item is made, because apparently that's going to determine the reciprocal tariff that is applied. We got to 169.27 because you take the 9% plus the 15% brings you to 24%. When you multiply that by the item value, again, $629, you get a total, but you still need to add the regulatory charge of $1.31 and the duty tax processing of $17. And when you add it all up, it comes to a grand total of $169.27. So in fact, the math on here was correct, but I am glad that I was determined to get a hold of someone at DHL to help explain this. Will these duties and tariffs dissuade me from making future handbag purchases in Japan? Well, I guess it's going to depend on what the numbers reflect. I do think it probably will have somewhat of a chilling effect, but I think ultimately you have to run the numbers. So, in this particular case, when I did the math, adding up what I paid for the bag and what additional duties and tariffs I had to pay, that brought me to a grand total of $798.27. Of course, that does not include sales tax or any shipping. When I looked at the average cost of a Louis Vuitton Neverfull in the PM size in a similar condition, I got about an average cost of $900. So it would cost me about $900 for me to purchase the same type of bag at the same level of condition here in the United States. So we're talking about a savings of around $100. If I walked into a Louis Vuitton boutique and bought a Neverfull in the PM size, it would cost me $2,100. So you can see for sure the huge difference in the cost of a brand new bag versus buying one on the secondhand market, which is why I am a big proponent of purchasing pre-loved bags. Now, $100, is that enough of a reason for me to stop buying the bags from Japan? I still see that $100 is a pretty good savings, but again, the other bag, which is the Dame of Ben, I managed to win this bag on an eBay auction for $480. So I decided to run the numbers on this. What would this ultimately cost me if I added the duties and the reciprocal tariffs? And this is what I came up with. $480, you got the 24%, and then you had those additional fees. The grand total would be $613.51. So you see the savings is actually pretty good there. So, like I said, do I think this may have a chilling effect? I do think we may see that, but at the end of the day, I will run the numbers and make an informed decision as to whether or not it's worth purchasing the bag from Japan, considering those additional duties and tariffs. Well, I hope this video was helpful and has armed you with enough information that you can make a more informed decision going forward on any international purchases. And keep in mind the date of this video, it's August of 2025. As of today, the de minimis exemption still applies, but in just a few days, it will no longer be in place and the duties and tariffs will kick in, even on goods valued at under $800. So the things with the tariffs, it changes rapidly. So by the time you watch this video, things may have changed yet again. Well, I appreciate your being here and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye for now.